What you're witnessing right now in the Middle East is the breakdown and fall of the US empire, and the media is all lying about it. And I'm going to explain why very quickly. The US empire is built on two things. Number one, the US military power that it has, which is one of the best in the world, if not the best. And number two, it being the financial center of the world, with the dollar being the reserve currency of the world. That means most transactions in the world have to be done in dollar, especially the petrol that is generated from the Middle East has to be traded in dollar. Now, why does that help America? Well, because that dollar, when a country sells equipment and receives dollars, it doesn't actually keep the dollars inside the country. It invests those dollars back into the US financial system and buys US debt, which makes it very easy for the US to borrow cheaply, because all those dollars, trillions of dollars all around the world, are being invested back in the financial center and the US government in America. To protect the US reserve currency, the US has bases all around the world to ensure that everyone is trading in dollar. And because of that dollar reserve currency, it can use that system to also sanction any country that disobeys America, because it controls the financial system. It can cut any country off, which is a powerful thing. And that's why, one of the reasons why the US is an empire. More than $1 trillion a year is generated just from the Gulf oil sales. And that sales are all being shut down right now by Iran, because no tanker can pass the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has shut it down, and people are saying, well, Iran doesn't have a navy anymore. You don't need a navy to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. It is only 35 kilometers wide. You just need a few drones and missiles and to hit some tankers to show that you mean business, which is exactly what Iran has done. So it has shut off all oil exports from this region, which supplies 20% of all the oil across the world. The US bases were supposed to be there to protect those countries and to ensure that the oil continues to be generated and sold in dollars. Those US bases in the Gulf areas are all under attack, and some have been severely damaged. The US bases were there supposed to protect the Gulf countries, but it's actually making those Gulf countries now in danger. It's a risk holding these US bases. The script has flipped. Instead of the US bases protecting the Gulf countries, it's the Gulf countries now protecting the US bases. The notion that America can defend its US bases have just been shut down, because they have all been attacked. And the region is waking up to the fact that the US was not prepared for this. The focus of the US was all towards Israel and not enough towards its own bases. It would rather defend Israel than its own bases. For Iran, the message is very clear. We have allowed your bases to be in this area as long as you don't attack us. Now that you have attacked us, there will be no more US bases in this region. And we're seeing the impact of this. The issue that they're facing, Americans, is that Iran is producing these $20,000 drones very cheaply, very quickly, and they're shooting them across, and they need to shoot them down. They're using these defense missiles that cost $500,000 to $1 million for each of these missiles. The US clearly miscalculated the attacks that will happen on the Gulf areas and doesn't have enough defense missiles for those areas. That's why the Gulf states are going now to Italy to ask them for defense. Let me just say this again. The Gulf areas, the Gulf countries, are unable to obtain defense missiles from America. The situation is so bad that America is now thinking about moving their defense systems and defense missiles away from South Korea and Japan to put them in the Middle East, because they didn't calculate how much they would need and how long this war will go. The oil production is what feeds the economy. It's what feeds, especially with the AI revolution, that requires a lot of energy. If there is no energy, that shuts down. This is what's going to pop the AI bubble. And Trump's reaction to the close of the Strait of Hormuz is that they're going to send ships to the region to protect the trade. Well, that's not going to work, because those ships are 1,000 kilometers away from Iran right now. The reason why they're 1,000 kilometers away from Iran is because they cannot get too close, because Iran will bomb them with their hypersonic missiles. Doesn't mean they're going to sink the ships, but they don't need to sink the ships. They just need to put them out of order. The problem is the media is lying about how many missiles Iran has, and they have misinterpreted, misjudged Iran's capability. This is the problem. When you look down at the enemy, when you think they're backwards, you miscalculate and you fail in a spectacular way. The situation is getting worse, whereby now Trump is trying to get the Kurds in Iraq and in parts of Iran to cause a civil war. Well, the issue there is that Turkey will not allow for the Kurds to become stronger, because if Kurds create their own country, Kurdistan, then that is a security risk for Turkey. And so Turkey will not allow the Kurds to do that. And the Kurds know this. They've had this issue before whereby Americans come and say, we'll support you to attack this and that, and then the American support goes away. And therefore, that is why they're very hesitant about making those moves, because they know it is very dangerous to their people. It is clear that there is no plan. There is no strategy. They thought that just by killing some leadership, the country will crumble. This is what you hear on the media. We keep on hearing they're on their last knee. They're a house of cards. Just one last push and everything will break down. And clearly the media has been lying to you. The problem is that Iran cannot accept any negotiation with the US. How could it, after they killed their negotiating team last time and then they killed their leader this time? What is there to negotiate about? How could you trust the US and Israel anymore? They keep on killing you while they're trying to negotiate with you. And Israel and the US are known to just stop and then restart the war once they fill their missiles back in the area. Why would Iran allow that? And so what this is looking like is that Trump is going to be pushed to deploy troops in the area. The whole system, the whole US empire is going to be challenged if it doesn't have those US bases around the world. If countries now start believing that the US cannot defend them. I mean, that's why everyone's being bullied by the US and just accepting US terms, because the US is the superpower. It defends those countries. But if it cannot now defend those countries because they misjudged this war, and it's clearly the fact that they misjudged this war, then why are they going to listen to the US if the US can't even defend them?